What do you see? Take a second and look and tell me what you see the difference is. Of course, it's darker, but besides it being darker, what else are we getting here that this is not giving us? $17,250,000. That's the home we're going to be talking about today and what it took for me to photograph one of the main key shots that represents the lifestyle of this home. How I went from this crazy high dynamic scene into this final polished, clean image to deliver for my clients so they can help sell this property. This particular home was crazy challenging because number one, lots of reflective surfaces and also a crazy contrast between the interior of the home and exterior. I want to talk about what we need to do in order to capture homes like this that we just have no choice. The dynamic range is so great that the difference between the interior and exterior can't just be captured with ambient brackets. We have to use additional tools like supplemental lighting to be able to enhance that home's feel so it looks like what we see with our own eyes. You know, obviously we know even though we're in 2026, technology still isn't good enough to where we can duplicate what we can see with our own eye, but we can get close enough with adding some different techniques and lighting elements that can help bring up the exposures in different areas of the scene, and also different other tools like polarizers and whatnot to give us the frames that we need to take back in post to build this image up to give our client a quality result that they can use to help market this home. So today I'm going to take you guys along with me so you guys can see what it took, my mindset, the approach that I applied to get this crazy high dynamic scene so that way I can deliver a nice finished image for my client. So a couple things I want to talk about. Let's start off with number one, the composition. Why am I choosing this composition? The main reason is because this one point center down this, living room scene takes me straight to that strip view because that's what I want. I want to capture that money shot that tells the full story of the value of this home. Having something at that price point, it needs to translate into the actual home to be able to deliver that. And how do we do that? We look for those elements, those features in the home that allow us to translate those prices into an image. So for me, in this particular home, this living room scene with the pocket doors all the way open, showing off that beautiful view of the Las Vegas Valley and Strip is the money shot that showcases off why this home is worth $17,250,000. So once I've established that and I know, okay, cool, this is the composition that I want, now it's like, okay, what's the problem areas? What am I looking at here that I need to tackle? As I can see in this home, there's a lot of materials here that's very reflective, and that can be very challenging, especially whether you're using flash or not, right? Those reflective surfaces can become very glary hotspots that can be hard to get detail back from. So that's why, number one, taking care of those reflective surfaces either by killing the ambient and using your flash, or two, adding a polarizer to your camera, which will help alleviate some of that light coming in to give you some more detail in those crazy glary areas. It doesn't work all the time, but the polarizer does work in certain situations, and in this situation, it really did work. And something else when it comes to polarizers I want you guys to be aware of. When you are using flash and you're using polarizers, be very careful because once you use that polarizer, you're going to lose a lot of power from your flash. So make sure you have a flash that can overcompensate for that loss of power when you're using that polarizer to get back that detail. In this situation, I'm using a 600 watt light, so that gives me enough power to overcome that situation so I can add light onto those areas that I'm trying to bring back detail in those reflective surfaces. So just think about that. If you've been shooting luxury a lot, I want you guys to pay attention to your own reactions when you walk into these spaces with your client. Those reactions tell you a lot of what needs to be captured. Of course, your client's going to give you some feedback as to what they want, what the home is about, the elements that they want to see captured and whatnot, but also pay attention to your own reactions of the spaces. For instance, here in this space, as soon as I walked in, I clearly reacted to, oh my God, look at this gorgeous view. That reaction now is a composition that I need to translate into my camera, right? So be very aware of that. When it comes to luxury spaces, that lifestyle, that essence, we have to be very conscious about. And by paying attention to how we even react to these spaces allows me to figure out what are the money shots and compositions that I want to set up for my client. One thing I want you guys to also pay attention to is the camera height. As you can see, I'm pretty high up. I'm kind of clearing those couches I'm clear even the back chairs there. The reason why is that rear element where the pool sitting area is, where it's sunken into the pool, is a huge feature of this home. So I want to make sure that I raise that tripod high enough that I clear all that living room so it takes me straight to the back to the edge of that infinity pool. So keep that in mind. Had I had the camera low, I would cut all that off and you wouldn't be able to appreciate those features of this home. So pay very attention to when you're composing for whatever spaces you have, what are the things you're trying to focus on, and make sure your camera height is set so that you're able to see all those elements in your composition. So the main question is, why am I using flash? Of course, the most obvious answer is if it's a dark scene, we're able to use flash to bring up the exposure in the different parts of the room so we can balance out the dynamic range of the interior and that exterior. The reflective surfaces brings lots of glare into the scene. So with flash, by raising up the shutter, we can kill that ambient and use the flash to bring back that detail. We also have color casting here between the daylight and the interior light. So by same thing, using the flash, we can bring back the actual color of this scene. And also by using flash, I'm able to add some better directionality and shape to the elements in the scene to let you feel the weight of the space. So flash really helps to solve lots of issues, but also create opportunities for a better image. So let's hop into Lightroom and Photoshop and take a look at the actual individual files so you can see how we actually build this whole thing up. All right, so here we are in Lightroom. Let's go ahead and take a look at all these images. So this is our final edited image, but let's go ahead and take a look at the brackets that we captured for this scene. So I did 7 brackets, and that's because just of how crazy the dynamic range was of the light between the interior and exterior of the scene. So starting with this image here and then going up, we're going to start getting some brighter images. There's like something for the view, another one here for the view. Now we're getting a little bit brighter for the interior, a little bit more brighter, and then a final image here for the interior. So as you can see, just look how crazy that dynamic range is for this scene. Number one, we have all this glare hitting all these areas here that we need to handle. We cannot deliver an image that has this much glare. Even the floor here, right? Like this floor, this tile is so reflective. We want to make sure we bring back all that detail, even in this, island and different areas. Bringing that back up with that flash is going to help us out a lot. And of course, the most obvious thing is the view. There's no detail here at all. Gone, even in here where the kitchen's at, no detail. So we got to make sure we bring that information back. And on top of it, just the overall exposure of the scene, bringing that up, with the flash, that's going to allow us to do that. So let's take a look at the actual flash frames that we're going to be using for this scene. So starting with this image here, this is giving me close to what I'm looking for. I'm taking my flash and bouncing it onto the ceiling. That bounce is reflecting and coming back down and creating light onto this area here, which is what I want. As you can see, we're getting a lot more detail in those hot spots, a lot more exposure into this area, and some directionality too, because we want to keep, on the backs of these couches and things dark, because that is true to where we are determining to be our key light to be right here. This is where our key light is going to be for our frame. So all the luminance, all the directionality and exposure is going to come from this area. So at the end of the day, when I build this whole thing up, I want to make sure all my light and direction is coming from here. So by adding all these flash frames, we're essentially going to be just creating directionality of light that we're using with our flash. So moving forward, here's another one here. This is probably, I would say, the main light direction I like in the scene. We have the ability here to add that nice directionality with that shadowing, right? Creating the flow of the light coming from those big windows over there so that we have that, like I said, key light direction. We're looking for always that key light direction into the scene. Moving on. Same thing here. The reason why I have multiple pops from that same direction is eventually these multiple pops I'm going to use to, in Photoshop, like brush myself out here, brush myself out here. So by shooting from that direction, I can take those additional frames and use it to mask myself out. Here, if you notice, I stepped in closer to the center of the living room because it actually gives me a lot more exposure here into the center. sometimes being further away, that bounce is not getting enough information. So by getting right into the center, I add more information. And I really like what's happening here behind here. There's still some shadowing like I like, but we're adding some more information to the back area of this couch. Moving on, now we're going to add a little bit of fill light in case I want to, for instance, add information to maybe some of these areas here, right? There might be something here that I can use. As you can see now, we are here adding information to the left side area where the kitchen's at. And then another exposure here just to be a little bit brighter. Now, I want you to see something. Look at this image and look at, let's go back to our first flash image here. I'm going to put it side by side. Take a look at what's happening here. This was our first image here we did of the flash that I showed you on the right side image here. But look at this left side image, this new one. What do you see? Take a second and look and tell me what you see the difference is. Of course, it's darker, but besides it being darker, what else are we getting here that this is not giving us? Well, hopefully you got it right, but we're getting more information on this area where the fireplace is at. What I ended up doing was putting a polarizer on my lens and turning the dial so that way I can kill some of that ambient sun hitting that reflective surface. So I can bring back the detail in that material of that wall. So by doing that, then all I'm doing is going around and adding light like we just did to those separate areas for that wall. As you can see, I'm raising up the exposure on this one to 640 because look at that. When you're using a polarizer and you're using flash, your flash power is going to be killed. So you got to make sure that whatever flash you're using is strong enough to overpower and give you information in those areas. So don't think that you can keep the same settings for your flash when using a polarizer at the same time. You're going to need to raise your values up so you can get that information. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want this information here where we have all this stuff on the wall nicely colored and detailed without it being blown out. So in Photoshop, I can brush that in and balance it out so it doesn't look so glary like you see here in this right side image. It's better than what it was from the ambient, but I think it could be even better. So by using a polarizer, we're able to fix that situation. I want to just show you guys really quick. On my camera for the Canon R5, I have this adapter which allows me to use the EF lens. This particular adapter gives me the ability to put different type of polarizers and ND filters behind the lens itself. So right now, as you can see, I have a clear filter, right? But I can actually put this polarizing filter in here, just like that. And I have a dial here, and that dial allows me to rotate the polarization of the lens so that way I can bring back detail in those certain spots that I want more information, as you, in this situation, like that wall where the fireplace is at. So having a polarizer, whether you have a Canon and you can put it behind the lens or in front of your lens, is a great tool because it allows you to have that ability to bring back that detail. And you may not even need flash. That detail might be more than enough that you can just grab the information with your ambient files and call it a day. So just a little tip, if you guys want to add another tool to your kit, grab yourself a polarizer for your camera. And just so you guys know, as far as settings go for the camera, when I did my brackets, I'm on aperture priority mode, f8 at ISO 250. That gives me enough information that I need for the ambient files to take back into post. And then when it came to the actual flash frames, I'm at f8, ISO 250, and then 1/250th of a second on manual mode. So that way those values stay consistent, and the only thing that's changing as I'm moving forward is either my flash power or my ISO in case I want to bring in more flash power that the flash itself isn't able to do by just raising it up to full power. So hopefully that might work for your situation in the future, but if not, it's at least a good starting point. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's hop onto Photoshop now so I can show you guys how I built this whole thing up. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. Let's go ahead and take a look at where we started with. Obviously, this is the final edit, but let's go ahead and start from the ground up. So remember, as I've talked to you guys before in previous videos, what I'm looking for my base layer, that foundational layer, before I start building things up, is the image that looks as close as possible to the end result that I envision in my head. Now, that image might be an ambient frame or it might be a flash frame. Whatever that image is that looks as close to that end result is what I put on the bottom, and then I start building up and cleaning up from there. So in this situation, I love this image here. It gives me a lot of good information. I like the information in the seating area here. We got some nice shadowing on the backs of these chairs, some illumination onto the ground here on the left side. So I think this is a good starting off point, and then I'll clean it up from there. So the next image I'm going to add is taking myself out. So I pretty much, if I take the mask out, I use this image here to just mask myself out. So if you see, these are the things that I brought in. So where you see highlighted is the areas that I masked in with this layer. So if I take that off and on, you see I'm slowly building it up layer by layer. Let's keep moving forward. Here is tackling some of that glare, right? So we just grabbed another layer here. So this is an image that I was standing on the left side to just take care of that glare. So that's before and after, right? You can see, like I said, where it's highlighted is pretty much the area I brushed in with my white brush on the black mask. Moving on. Now, this is where we start bringing in that polarization layer. So look at the difference. Before that glare we have, and after that glare is really taken care of, and we're getting a lot more information for that area. So just taking that frame and brushing it in just on top of that. So, and the reason why I have both of these here and not just one is because maybe I want to bring back some of the glare. So if I wanted to, I can go to the opacity slider and like dial it back and bring in some more of that glare if I wanted to, right? It just gives me options in post so I have full control. Moving on. Here, what did I do here? I took another one here where I just darkened it. So same thing, I just wanted to get more darkness here on the right. And don't worry, I'm going to be able to bring all this exposure up. But just, slowly building this up, trying to get more information. Here I added a curves. As you can see, now we're like kind of building up the exposure of the foreground and right side of the frame. Now here's our left side area here. Remember, we have that kitchen area. So I just used that frame here to put a mask. And I'm pretty much on normal mode. Right now, as far as all the layers go so far that we've done, every single one is normal mode. I have not changed anything to lighten or screen as of yet. So here's our kitchen, right? A little bit of exposure there to the kitchen and bar area. Here, I use this image to just add a little bit of detail to the back of this couch. So if you see, this is the before, it's kind of dark. A little bit more information there, just so it's not completely dark. But if I want to later, I can bring back that darkness. But it's nice to at least have a clean image here to work with, and I can darken that later. And now slowly, I'm also bringing up the exposure value of the entire interior. I haven't tackled the view as of yet. So because we're bouncing, as you can see on the ceiling, we're getting all these crazy hotspots. This is the beauty of having those ambient files. So with the ambient file, which is here, this one, I'm going to use that to fix that ceiling. So pretty much with the mask, I'm just brushing in just that ceiling. Obviously, that's way too dark. So we add a curve and just attach it to just that ceiling layer, brighten that up. And then with this other curve, I just used it to fix the white balance on it manually. So I went to the RGB values and just manually cleaned up the white balance on that so that it balances better with the foreground and other areas here with the flash. So it's not as warm. See, that's before a little bit warm. Here's a little bit cooler, and that just balances a little bit better. Next here is our TV. So I want to keep reflections, but I don't want to go 100%. So as you can see here, just adding a curves to the TV right there. I'm just darkening that exposure so it's not so glary, but I still want to retain some of that reflection on there. And then same thing, we have another TV right here. I did the exact same thing, made a selection there, added a curves, and just darkened that up a bit, which will look so much better. And now here is our view. So that's masking it in. So if you take a look at the actual view itself, or the actual mask itself, this is what I selected. So with my pen tool, I kind of went around all these edges that you see here in white for my mask. So pretty much anything white will be revealed, anything black will be hidden. So putting that back on, as you can see, that's before and after. So pretty much what I wanted to do is bring back some information in the pool area over there. Obviously the scenic landscape with the strip and mountain and sky. So adding that information there. Here, I added a levels just to add some more information and brightness, because I don't want it to be too dark. It is obviously bright, so we want to make it bright, but we want to make it bright with detail and information. So adding a level so we get some more brightness in that sky. Then adding a hue saturation just to add some more blues to the top of it. Now, because we got this crazy hazy kind of a day, I used another layer here to kind of fix these areas. As you can see, if I add this here, look at what I'm bringing in. You see the little bit more of the blues. So I used the mask, which is this mask here, to keep it constrained. And I just use that to add these blues into the scene, so that way it looks nice and clean. This next layer here, we have some little chlorine filters out there in the pool. So we just use a remove tool to get rid of that. And then moving forward, that's the general gist of my composition. After that, I added a curves and I applied a exposure value to the curve just to bring up the exposure of the entire space. So just raising it up from the center up to the top left corner just gives me that information in the midtones and whatnot to bring up some life to the entire image as a whole. And then my other favorite trick I like to do is add this preset, linear contrast. So here, if I take this out, I'm going to delete it. I'm going to curves, hit curves there, and go to preset and linear contrast. It just adds this micro contrast to the scene. So look, if I take that off and on, you see that? It adds some depth to the image. Just that little micro contrast is all it needs. So I love doing that to all my images. And then here, I just created another image here for both these TVs, and I have it painted black, but I turned it down to 50%. I wanted it to be a little bit darker. I didn't want so much reflection, so I just created a mask, or I created a selection, painted it black, and then turned the opacity down to 50. So that way we have some reflections, but still a dark TV. So that's my general edit, right? This is blending the flash and the ambient exterior. But after that's done, and to you guys, you may think, oh, this is great, looks great. There's still one more step that needs to happen. Because many times when people edit, they put this together and it can look very flashy. We want to really make it look real and not as flashy, blending both that ambient and the flash frames together so it's a cohesive image and it just doesn't look like pure flash, right? We want to make it look believable. So the next step I do is, after that's done, I have in this group here my final polish. So this image that I have highlighted here is just the, let me take this off. There we go. So this image here is just the ambient image that we had, just a couple little tweaks in Lightroom, and that's it. You guys remember going back to Lightroom when I was showing you those brackets, this is one of them. This is what's going to help me to allow myself to blend in all those flash frames into this and then brush in the areas that I want. So once I have this image in here, which I just duplicate from that ceiling layer, I create a stamp layer for all the other images in the frame, which is this one here. So this is a stamp layer of all the work I did to build up the flash and ambient frames together. And what I mean by stamp layer is pretty much selecting all those images, all that work we did, and merging it into one image. So once I have that, my flash image and my ambient image, I put the flash image on top, and we'll just go ahead and do it right now. We're going to delete this right here real quick. I put my flash image on top. I take the eyeball off so I don't see it. I put a white mask on it. Then I come up here to image, apply image. And what's going to happen right now is Photoshop is going to look at what it sees right now, which is this ambient image. It's going to take the luminosity values of that image and create a black mask. Or no, I'm sorry, create a mask that's going to be filled into that layer that the eyeball is off. So if you see here, let me hit cancel. Pay attention to this white mask. Look what's going to happen here. When I hit image, apply image, it's going to change and it's going to apply the luminosity values of this image here. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to turn it on. And as you can see, now it's creating a balance of interior and exterior. It's trying to give you a little bit more of a realistic look. Obviously, that doesn't look good, but this is another step I take into blending all the full image together so it's not so flashy. Once I have that done, then I put it into a group and I blend in just the areas that I want. So once I turn all these layers on, here, that group that I have here with the ambient and the stamp layer with the apply image onto it, I put that into its own group, add its own black mask, and I just gently paint in the areas I want to make it look not so flashy. So if I take this group off, see what I mean? It's kind of really flashy here. But if I add in back some of those elements, it doesn't look as flashy. For instance, we have some more darkness here, which I like. Helps to sell that directionality of the key light. We have some darkness here on these chairs. See if I take that off and on, that looks believable. Even here on the left side here, it's not so flashy. See how flashy that is there? Now it's a little bit more believable. Even the walls here, that looks a lot more better. It doesn't look so flashy and bright. It's real, as if what it would be like to be there. So this last final step is what I do on a lot of all my projects to kind of get that blend to look real and not so flashy. Something that when people look at the image, they don't question like, oh, is this fake? Or is it just something they can just enjoy and not think about it? We want to make all our images look and feel that way without making our client think like, oh, this was AI or this was not what I saw when I was there. You know, we want to make sure that it's as real as possible without taking it too far and making it unbelievable. So just something to pay attention about when you guys are putting your edits together. So anyway, once that's all said and done, I go ahead and save that. We jump back into Lightroom. And then the final tweaks here for Lightroom, as you can see here, all I did was globally, if I go to my final image here, these are the final settings that I did. So I dropped the white balance down just a little bit, just to cool it a tad. It was a little bit warm. Also changed the tint just a tad. Exposure and contrast are left exactly the same. Drop down the highlights just a tad, open up the shadows a little bit, added some texture and clarity, and then the most important thing, going to my alignment on the transform tool and added some guidelines. So I used the paneling on the wall here to the right, the top of the ceiling area here, the bottom of this tile area here, and the left side of this pillar area here to give me my horizontal and vertical lines to make sure I have a nice aligned image. And then that's it. Once that's said and done, if I did anything else, I think it was maybe a little bit of blemish removal. As you can see here, just a couple little things here I just took out with the remove tool. And that's it. As far as the crop goes, I think I left it pretty much the same. The crop was pretty good. I like the way that looks. If anything, if I wanted to, I can maybe crop in the top. But as a whole, this feels good. The blend looks good. The final polished image I'm happy with, and I know my client's going to be happy with this, that they can use for their marketing materials to help sell this house, which obviously they did, selling this home at $17,250,000. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys all enjoyed that. There was a lot we went over between the ambient brackets, the flash frames, Lightroom, Photoshop, the mindset, talking about, the daytime, the twilights, all that good stuff. But I really think it's necessary to talk about it because when doing luxury, it's a different mindset, a different lifestyle we have to be aware of. And we can't just shoot it like a core real estate. We have to be able to tackle all these crazy situations, whether it's lighting, composition, or whatnot, so that we give our clients the correct materials that they need to help market this home. One thing I want to leave you guys with is just to always remember, ask yourself why. You know, you talk to your client, they tell you what their needs and wants are, you figured out what the money shots are, and when you're ready to shoot, before you start just throwing light at everything, ask yourself why. What are the problem areas, and what is light going to do to solve that, right? Once you understand that, it's going to help you on site so you have the correct frames of information with the light pops, the ambient brackets and whatnot. That's going to make your life easier back in post, whether you're editing it yourself or you're giving it to an editor to do it themselves as well. So we want to just make sure we're very efficient on site and in post. So by just asking yourself why, it's always going to help you in the long run. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys all enjoyed that. Leave your comments down below. I'm sure you guys all have lots of questions. Put it in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. For any of you guys who missed it, I did another video on the actual twilight shoot of what I did to actually shoot the full twilight of this home, showing you guys the actual images that I captured and talk you through my mindset as I walk through the home, photographing all the different spaces and areas. So you guys want to, if you guys want, take a look at that here in this link, or I'll also have it in the description down below. And for any of you out there who want to get really hands-on and one-on-one, whether it's doing Zoom calls or whatnot, I do provide private mentorship where we can just target and talk about business, portfolio, development, team building, photography, editing, the full gamut of things when it comes to this industry. So anyway, if you guys want more information about that, go to the link below and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. And don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. It really helps the channel out. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching this video, and remember, keep on shooting. I'll see you next time.